Hello, Patriots. Jay Delancey here. I wanted to offer you some training slides that we have, and I'm going to run through them real quick, and we'll offer the slides on our website. So without further ado, we'll put it right here. All right, these are the basically three main points to this. Our observer guidelines, electoral practices and procedures, and observer actions. And big table of contents. I'll probably say this way too many times, but there are these slides will be available, and you can print them two up to a page, and it comes up with a nice document that I could show you one here. By the way, while I'm stalling and looking for that, I'll just comment on our little barroom brawl scene behind us. We think that's appropriate this time of year because this is what elections are like at this point, where people are it's really just kind of a barroom fight out there. All right, if you can see this, yeah, if you print them off in like an Excel, it's a PDF document, you 2 pages per page, and it'll come off to be 16 pages. And with a table of contents, you get a good idea of what you're looking for, and you can just a handy dandy guide to North Carolina, by the way. Let's be sure it says that somewhere. It does not. But anyway, this is North Carolina stuff. Yeah, it says it over in the small print over in the right-hand corner on the front page, where this is not legal guidance. It's just some tips we've learned about state law regarding election law, looking at the numbered memos, which is another form of guidance they have, and also something called the North Carolina Administrative Code. So as we move on, observer, these are things we'd like for observers to do. We think it's a good idea for observers to do these. And you know what, guys, I don't care what party you're in. I do believe that, well, the numbers indicate that certain kinds of voter fraud are more likely to be committed by Democrats than Republicans. If you care to look at the prosecution figures across the state, granted, Voter Integrity Project has only been able to get 4 prosecutions, and all of them were Republicans. But that was with over 200 criminal referrals that we made into the system. It's a fact in North Carolina that Democrats get away with crimes that Republicans don't. That said, there were even then statewide with prosecutions that we had nothing to do with. There were about 60, I've forgotten the exact number, but it's on our website, about 63% of all voter fraud that was prosecuted by Democrats, and with about 20% Republicans and about 20% unaffiliated. All right, that said, observer, when you get there about 15 minutes early if you are checking in at the polls to be an observer. And we want you to inspect the outside, look for the exits, just to get a sense of where the voting enclosure is. And note any, that's GOTV means get out the vote. See who's handing out sample voter guides. See who your friends are. If you've got someone in your party out there, talk to them and be sure that they know you're out, they know you're inside, because those greeters are going to help you. Let's be honest. What we're looking for here is a certain kind of fraud. So Democrats, if you're watching this, well, okay, we're a 501c4. I'm going to talk to it from a partisan perspective. Although voter integrity should be a nonpartisan issue, we're looking for fraud. And from what we can tell from the data, it looks like Democrats are the ones prosecuting it. So I'm going to get partisan here. Meet your Republican greeter. Observers, meet your Republican greeters. Go out and meet them and work with them. Be sure they have your picture. Have a picture of them. Have them take a picture of you and a cell number. Get your cell number. You need to work out. You need to be sure they can contact you and talk to you through their texting, and to be able to really get to communicate with you through text, because you can do that while you're inside. And give them a priority watch list. I'll show you what that means in a little while. Anyway, you'll see it in one of the slides. And ask the greeter to pass along your watch list to the other people, along with your contact information, to anyone who replaces them. Because you, as an observer, need to have those eyeballs on the outside. And we'll go over more of that later. Okay, observer check-in procedures. You go in, you introduce yourself to, depending on whether it's election day or early voting, you're going to talk to either the chief judge or the site supervisor. So CJSS. Okay, and just say, hey, hey, I'm John Smith, Libertarian Party Observer. I plan to be here until 4:30. And be sure to inform the judge if you are an at-large observer, because it's our understanding that you're exempt from that min-max time limits. There's some dispute on that, but that's our understanding. Anyway, listen carefully. Don't interrupt with the judge. Don't argue with the judge. And politely confirm your right to access, saying things like, it is my understanding, or it was my understanding, that I could exit the building to observe curbside voting, just to confirm that they're not going to raise a stink with you for doing it. I could be able to view any help desk issues. That means you can walk around the precinct. You can take a look at any problems at the help desk. I would be able to exit and return in a non-disruptive manner. That kind of means you can go out and talk to anybody you want to outside the 50-foot electioneering boundary. That includes voters who saw a crime. That includes the greeters. You can talk to them. And the fourth bullet there, I would be given as much access to the voting enclosure as is feasible. Now, all four of those points, the chief judge or site supervisor should agree to them. If they do not, this is a point of conflict, and we will get to that in a moment. If they lay any restrictions on you at that point, including the name of the CJSS, okay, document any restrictions they lay on you, including the name, and then politely inform them. Don't backdoor them. Don't call them. Don't go, okay, we'll see about that, or just be quiet and then walk out and stab them in the back, because they will get a phone call from their county leadership telling them, no, you have to let these people do this. Because right now the chief judge or site supervisor may be, no, I don't think I will. I'll have to call and see. Okay, well, I'm going to make a phone call too. And go, okay. So you got to make your phone call. They make theirs. And next thing you know, you win. All right. Despite all that, try as best you can to maintain friendly relations. That's all. Okay. Next slide. I'm not going to read all these, but these are some things you need to look for. These are just common sense things. You want to note them. Make sure that people can see these things. You need to be able to see them. And these are some good questions, but you don't want to bug the chief judge too much with questions like that. These are just things to be on the lookout for, items to confirm as you kind of wander around and look, kind of like a Columbo character just looking around. All right, you can look at them more in the handout. That'll be a PDF file on at www.voterintegrityproject.com/observers. Okay, now observers' right to leave and return to the facility. Okay, this is what we read in NCAC 20.101. An observer may leave the voting place without having served for 4 hours, but the observer cannot be replaced by a new observer until at least 4 hours have passed since the first observer began serving. An observer who leaves the voting place for any reason may be prohibited by the chief judge from returning if the observer's return would cause a disruption in the voting enclosure. Okay, we hate that language because it's double conditional. You see that break I have in the underlying language? It says if you leave, you're in trouble. But then it doesn't say only, but then it says if the observer's return would cause a disruption in the voting enclosure. So this is a legal matter that your party will no doubt wind up, if the local county election board or state election board wants to play hardball, they're going to have to fight over that word if. And it depends on what you mean by the meaning of the word if. We would argue it's deliberately done this way by Representative Lewis and his old buddy, Kim Strack, over at State Board of Elections at the time. Kim's gone, Lewis is gone, but this kind of crap they did to us where they put this kind of ambiguity in there because they don't want observers in the process. So this may be something we have to litigate, but at Same time, just document it. If the chief judge won't let you do it, I'm going to use that term chief judge, even though it could mean site supervisor also. Let's not quibble over that language. It's just too many syllables. Anyway, we need to know if they're not going to let you in there. This language says you do have that right. Okay, you are given wide access. There's no disputing this language. This is from a numbered memo. This is some of their guidance and says, you can't hover around the window of a vehicle close enough to see the ballot, but it says right there in the language, but may be permitted to stand at a reasonable distance to observe activity within the vehicle to ensure the voter is not improperly assisted. In navigating, and further on it says, in navigating the various scenarios that may arise, officials should work to allow observers as much access as is feasible. It is feasible for you to go over to the help desk to see what's going on, which is another workstation within the voting enclosure. And the only thing you cannot do is stand behind the computer and look at the voter's personally identifying information. But you should be able to go over there and be close enough to hear conversation. Again, if the chief judge won't let you, you document the chief judge name and go outside and let him know you're going to make the phone call, and they'll go, okay, because they're going to get a call saying, hey, you got to kind of do this, and we'll win that one. But we need you to be told, no, you can't, before we can win it, but we will win it. Okay, observer limitations and freedoms. This goes over some of them, and we'll go over those in another way. This is where it's listed in the black and white law. This is a big one, though. Shall do no electioneering, shall in no manner impede the voting enclosure, the voting process, or interfere or communicate with or observe any voter in casting a ballot. Okay, so that's it. That's black and white law. Those are the big restrictions you have, and that's it. Everything else they have dreamed up through the administrative process, and every bit of that is fightable in court. I just made that word up. You can fight in court over those other things, and we will, or someone will, if you find you have these restrictions. Okay, let's see there. Chief judges and judges of the election shall permit the observer to make such observation and take such notes as the observer may desire. So you have the right to take notes, and we have some note forms we'd like you to use on our website. We have them listed at voterintegrityproject.com under the Observer tab. Okay, now let's see. There's a warning before ejection. They're supposed to give you a warning according to this North Carolina Administrative Code. So if they just kick you out on the spot, okay, step out, make that phone call. Don't argue. There's no benefit for you arguing with the chief judge. That chief judge is captain of the ship. They can have you walk the plank if they want to, but hey, you can call lawyers too. You can make them allow you to, permission to board ship. You can get them to give you that permission back because they didn't give you a warning. They just arbitrarily kicked you out. Not fair, but they will. Some will try and arbitrarily kick you out. Yeah, but don't get upset if they do. It's just, cheater's going to do what a cheater's going to do. All right, so these are the specific lists in the administrative code that kind of break it down in a much easier way to read this. And we have no dispute over these things. They're taking the law and extrapolating it in plainer language. Not a problem. These things, I think reasonable people would agree observers should not be doing this. And if anybody is doing this, then you should make a stink. In other words, document it and go through that procedure in a moment. We'll go over it some more. But for now, I say make a stink. I mean, just write it up and see what you're going to do then. You might call the lawyer line. You might just talk to the chief judge and say, hey, moving forward, you need to fix this. Or you might intervene like Superman or Wonder Woman. Say, wait. Okay, that's humor, but we'll see. Okay, polling site setup. I'm not going to read this to you. It's in the handouts. This shows what the law says about how the polling site should be set up. If you're going early in the morning, you should familiarize yourself with this. You're not going to get to see the polling site set up. North Carolina law does not allow you in prior to the site setup. So if the poll's open at 6:30, which they do on election day, you're not going to get in early. So don't ask, don't bug them. Just walk in with everybody else and introduce yourself. Yeah, you can Yeah, I'll leave it at that. So that's where the rules are. So you want to familiarize yourself with this, and then that way you know what you're looking for when you get in there. Okay, photography of voters prohibited. These are the rules about photography. The bottom line is don't do it. Don't go in there with a camera. Don't go in there with a video camera. If you see someone photographing subject to these two rules, they're in big trouble. If they're following these two exceptions, they're not in big trouble at all. So you read it. The basic deal is, say you're let's say you're a citizen, you were sworn in, and you're happy as crap to be a lawful citizen and you're voting for the first time in America. You want to get a picture taken. You brought your mother or your sister, brother to go in there and take your picture. They can take your picture provided they get the approval of the chief judge. And what chief judge is going to say no to something like that? This is America. I'm proud to be an American. I'm voting for the first time. I want my picture taken. But they can't show the ballot. They can show you doing something like checking in to vote. I mean, they have rules too. But as far as voting, picturing, um, if the voter and the chief judge approve, the picture can be taken. Now, the exception to that is the politician. Politician walks in, he's on the ballot or she's on the ballot, and says, "Hey, I want to take my picture." The chief judge has to approve. So they're bringing their camera entourage with them. "Hey, I'm gonna do this or take my picture." Okay. So don't get excited. Don't get your panties in a wad if you see that going on. Or you have a problem that someone's out taking pictures of people in the polls without anyone knowing about it or supposedly. That could be you. That could be me. Actually, it has been me, and I've learned my lesson. I will not do it again. You should not do it. Even if you're documenting a crime, the picture will get you in trouble. What you need if you're documenting a crime is to write your statement about the crime and get a witness who also saw it. Then you're in good shape. You take a picture, now you're in trouble. And they might not even prosecute the crime, but they could prosecute you. So don't do it. All right. No pictures. All right. Now, black and white law, North Carolina General Statute 163 is all the election law matters. And Section 166 within there says the things they cannot do. Remember that non-citizen I was talking about who became a citizen who voted? This guy, he might want to take a picture of him with a ballot. That's called a ballot selfie. That's against the law in North Carolina. In West Virginia, it's legal, but North Carolina is not. We'd like it to stay not legal. And so we're happy that ballot selfies are illegal. There's a reason for that. I won't go into it except to say that some crooks demand a ballot selfie in order to you show them the selfie and they'll pay you for voting for their guy. That's illegal. That's the kind of thing they do. So if you see anyone taking a ballot selfie, don't take their picture. Just document it and then point it out to the chief judge pretty quickly. But it is what it is. Don't panic if the chief judge doesn't do anything. They could go over and say, "Let me see your phone." They won't, though. It's election day. They're not going to do it. They'll say, "You can't do that." They're not going to prosecute it. It's unless you get two people who see it and you want to sign, you want to follow the person out, and without talking to the person, just follow them out and be sure your other witness is willing to say they saw it too. And once you get those statements, you get outside that 50-foot electioneering zone, you can take the picture of that person. And you could even maybe get the name of the voter while they're still in the voting enclosure. If you listen carefully, you could probably get that because that's a crime. Um, why are they doing it? It might be just they're proud and stupid. Hey, I'm voting for the first time, or it may be that they're involved in a crime. So that's for somebody else to decide. Okay, 7A there. So voter begins. This is a rule. They have to state their current name and address. Sometimes they don't know their current name and address, and they pull out a piece of paper and read it. That's another issue, but let me stop there for now. They have to say it out loud, their words. They can't just hand the polling official a piece of paper that has it on there. The procedure is they must say it to the election official. Let's see. And if they have the wrong address, which happens a lot, this is a biggie for you as an observer. The polling official might say, I have you living over on Johnson Street. Oh, okay. Yeah, I live on Johnson Street. Oh, okay. Or, they might be looking down at they use like a, 24-point font on the documents on the table that the voter might just look down at and say the address. Say, I can't remember the street number, but I live on Johnson Street. they're not supposed to get any coaching from the polling official. Now, the polling official might say, I don't have you at that address. Have you recently moved? And they kind of prompt them that way. Have you lived anywhere else in Wake County? Could you have possibly registered at a different address and forgot to update your records? But the polling official is not supposed to suggest an address to the voter. If they do, don't freak out. Write down the time, write down who did it, and then have a little after you write it down, have a little conversation with the chief judge. Say, oh, by the way, that guy over there was coaching on the address. Here's the documentation. They read it and go, okay, we'll fix it. Now, more on the documentation later. But the point is, don't panic, don't get mad, don't jump in there like Wonder Woman, Superman, saying, stop, you can't do that. Now you're wrong. Now you're talking to people you shouldn't be talking to, and you're going to get kicked out. Maybe the chief judge will warn you once, say, don't do that. But your key is anger management. So if you start doing all that heroic stuff, you're going to get angry because you're going to get in trouble and you're going to wind up getting arrested, like my good friend Gary did. Sucks to be Gary, but he got excited at the polls and he got kicked out, didn't leave, and they called the cops. Gary got dragged out. Disclaimer, Gary was not working for me. In fact, none of these people are working for me. This is supplemental training. You're not working on my dime. I'm just giving you advice. Okay, that last bullet, item 7C4. All improperly voted official ballots are returned to the precinct officials and marked as spoiled. This is a biggie because they have a way of managing those documents, and they mark them as spoiled and they stick them in an envelope in a special folder called spoiled. They should do that. If they're not doing that, they're in trouble. They have some splaining to do. So you want to, just again, talk to the chief judge. Say, I think it says I think the law says you have to mark that as spoiled. Does that sound familiar? And there's a trick to this where you don't just, hey, show them your training material. The law says you got to do that. Don't do that. Just go to them subtly and say, hey, it's my understanding that you're supposed to mark that as spoiled. You might want to look it up. I'm pretty sure you do, but you might want to look it up in your manual because they have a manual they get, and they're supposed to have read it. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know, but you can kind of nudge them. And I'm telling you, do this right, and they're going to be coming to you later in the day, going, "Hey, do you have any guidance on this?" And you go, "Oh, yeah, maybe." It could be that you wind up being friends with that chief judge. Not in every case, but it could be in some cases, and you might be that lucky guy or gal. Okay, now let's talk about electioneering. It says no electioneering inside the 50-foot boundary. Now, I don't know what that is. Exactly what does that mean? So I looked it up. In the dictionary, you can read it. Activity of trying to persuade people to vote for a particular political party. Typically, what they say is you can't walk in with campaign buttons. You can't be persuading others in line. That's a biggie. And that I've never heard of anyone teaching not to do that. But if you can, as an observer, you can hear that. You can hear people doing that. Clothing for a candidate. The voters can wear clothing for a candidate. You cannot as an observer, but as a voter, you can. So if you observe some voter walking in, this train runs both ways. If you observe a voter walking in with Biden's sweatshirt or, Kamala Harris for president or something like that, yeah, it's legal. They can do that. Why? Because of our good friends in Minnesota, Andy Selick and the Minnesota Voter Alliance. They went all the way to the Supreme Court and they won against Mansky. I think he was a DA or a Secretary of State or something like that in Minnesota. But it's a SCOTUS ruling that it's free speech. You can walk in with any sweatshirt you want to wear. You can walk in with Black Lives Matter sweatshirt. That's not your business. Don't get excited. It's okay. Now, if they get in line and they start shaming people around you, you're voting against Trump, aren't you? I know you are. Tell me you're going to vote against Trump. You voting against Trump? You better be. And then the polling official, we have a scenario we'll play later, but if people do that in line, they're wrong. If they're sitting there, that's called electioneering and they cannot do that. But if they have a sweatshirt that says orange man bad, fine. Take your sweatshirt. I don't care. Okay. This is maddening. I'm going to go through this. There are cases where I know North Carolina, hey, we're a Jim Crow state. We don't require ID, so people can come in and just say any name and address they want, and they get to vote. That's the reality of it. But as an observer, you have some actions you can take. But sometimes they do ask for ID, and you're like, "Why are you doing that?" Well, the reason they do it is because under that middle lane, that HAVA or HAVA, as we call it, the Help America Vote Act, when George Bush gave away our election franchise after he was so guilt-ridden for winning in Florida that he let Democrats draft a law, and Republicans, the good losers that they are, just they tweaked the edges of it and did a little bit, but not much to make the law better. So they let the Democrats have the definition of voter ID. Get this, they had majority House and Senate and the presidency, and they let the Democrats define a voter ID as those stupid documents in the middle column, things with your name and address on it and no picture. We call those HAVA IDs because it's not really an ID. It's not a photo ID, but that's what it is. And then okay, in 2012, those two columns, those were the IDs you could use. And they were particularly where it's a problem was college students walking in and not having much. So it's a long story I won't go into about college students, but we've had a running gun battle over colleges mobilizing the student votes for purely partisan purposes. But in 2012, a lot of kids got their votes were invalidated because they didn't have any of these things, but they're pulling up screenshots they had on their phone of Amazon, like an Amazon package came to my dorm room. So they're using that. Okay. So now there's a memo saying these things can be used. And that means they can just have something in hard copy or electronic format. I should have had that in quotes so you pay attention to it. But that's the fact. They can pull up a screenshot of these things. So it's just fraud friendly. What can I say? It's crappy law put out by rhinos and Democrats, and this is what we get. So you as an observer, don't get your panties in a wad when you see these people doing all these things because they're going to be doing it. It's type of fraud. If they come in and show ID once and vote, okay. They come in twice, now they're yours. You can do something then. But I just want to give you these. It's part of the law, and you got to know what it is so you don't get excited when you see these things going on. By the way, there's something not on this list anywhere on here, and that is a lease. Now, I've actually seen, I have a war story on that a little bit as a sample issue where someone did that for same-day registration. They tried to use a lease, and we've seen that in North Carolina criminal and protest laws. We've read that where that's happened a lot, where people have been they get thwarted in their efforts to vote illegally with same-day registration by using a lease. So leases are not allowed. Okay, who may assist the voter? There's a lot here. But here's the exact language out of the statute. I want to go over this a little bit. The only thing that's not in the statute is this part, note no cousins. There's a lot of people. Voters' spouse, brother, sister, parent, grandparent, child, grandchild, mother-in-law, father-in-law, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, step-parent or step-child, not a step-sibling, as chosen by the voter. No cousins. No cousins. Okay. Also, others can do it. It says anybody, in certain circumstances, anybody other than the voter's employer or agent of that employer, or an officer or agent of the voters' union. Okay. What we're trying to prevent is bullies walking in with voters, holding them by the ear, saying, "You're going to vote. Here's how you're going to vote. I'm assisting this person," and that kind of bullying. The voter is supposed to request the assistance. If the guy is sitting there going, if the polling official says the voter has to request it, and the guy looks at the voter, pulls out a gun, and says, "You're going to assist. You need to assist. You need to request me." Yeah, I'm just okay. I'm doing a bad job at being dramatic, but the fact is, that might be an issue of contention if you feel like the assister was pressuring the voter. What does that mean? Does it mean he squeezed her arm, or does it just say he gave her a look? If he gave her a look, that's not really a fact, unless he gave her a look and scowled at her, and then she got scared and subserviently nodded. This comes to how you document it, because if you just say, I felt like she was intimidated. Well, your feelings don't matter. Sorry to say that. I know. It kind of hurt, but your feelings don't matter. Okay, these are just the law, and the law doesn't care about your feelings. They care about the facts, what happened. This goes over to the assistance process, and I'm not going to read this to you. It's a lot of words, but it's in your handout. Okay, curbside voting rules. Again, I'm not going to hand this to you, but it's in your handout. I do want to highlight a couple things that's down there underlined, thanks to a numbered memo. As observer, cannot be permitted to hover. Already read that. It says may be permitted to stand at a reasonable distance to observe activity within the vehicle to ensure the voter is not improperly assisted. Okay, under the era of COVID, they've decided that you're going to get a 6-foot halo around the car. And that means even a car in line, they have a 6-foot halo. So you can't be leaning in the window of some car that's in line. Not only can you not do it, but nobody can do it. So if you see anybody outside doing that, this is where your greeter might come in handy. If they see the other greeters doing that, number one, your greeter should know they can't be doing that, but the other greeters shouldn't be doing it either. If they do, they're saying, I don't believe them, but they're saying they're going to call them out on it, that even a car outside the 50-foot halo area, but in the line to vote curbside, you cannot approach that car and offer them a voter guide. I think that's baloney, and I think the 50-foot rule applies, period. So if someone tells you you can never approach that car, even outside the 50-foot electioneering line, or the halo, as I call it, you got a 50-foot halo and a 6-foot halo. COVID says you can't go within a 6-foot distance of the car for anything. But we asked the hypothetical, what if the voter requests an absentee, it requests a voter guide? I actually had someone say no, and I said, seriously? They said, okay. I said, okay, well, can I ask that person they want it? They said, no, I don't believe that. I think if their window's down and you ask them, hey, would you like a Democrat voter guide? Would you like a Republican voter guide? And they go, yeah, go hand it to them. Yeah, okay. That's just my advice. I'm not a lawyer, but if someone tells you you can't do it, give me a call. We'll see about that. Okay. Observers may watch closing procedures. This is after the polls close. You can stick around. And those are the sources we have for that document, including a training video. This is in your handouts. And if you get the handouts, these links do work. If you look at them on your computer, you can look at those links. You can even look at a little video that Josh Lawson narrated. Okay. All right. Note the required closing time, 7:30. We have some important things to say about that. Got some tips here that are not in the law. Okay, it said note the required time. Any voter still in line is considered on time. What they can't do is people jumping in line. So you might want to stand out by the end of the line and see if people are jumping in line. A good closing procedure is for the chief judge to walk, or someone who works inside, to walk in and hand out pieces of paper with numbers on them. The person at the end of the line gets a number 1. Person in front of that person gets a number 2. Person in front of that person gets a 3. All the way up, there's 150 people in line when the polls close. Then the 150th person in line outside the door or whatever gets a piece of paper that says 150. That way, if somebody shows up later and breaks in line, they don't have a piece of paper with a number on it. If they do, well, what number are they going to use? All the numbers are given away. So that's a procedure, not in the law. We'd recommend it, and you might, if you're on friendly terms with the chief judge, you might recommend that. I heard somewhere a really cool procedure, and we might even do a video on that just to show it how cool it is, because there's no way. I mean, what they typically do is hand someone a placard that says "end of line." Okay, so what if the end of line guy lets 5 people in ahead of them? Okay, I guess the end of line keeps moving. So this is a way to mean it, to say it and mean it. Okay, end of line. Any voter still in line is on time. Okay, let the chief judge know you intend to follow the ballots back to headquarters. I can't stress this enough. I'd recommend do it with somebody else too, but even if you're by yourself, you can do it. And this is where you want your phone recording, or you want to be talking to somebody on the phone as you're doing it. Just let them know what's going on, because mischief happens here. Vehicles break down, vehicles they pull over for unexplained reasons. This is not a good time for those ballots to be delayed, for the ballots or the results to be delayed. Okay, but we're way ahead. Just let them know you're going to do that, because right now you haven't left yet. You're still in the precinct. It says number of paper ballots must be reconciled. Unused must be sealed in a ballot container. Unused ballots, what that means. The machine's closed down, and then it says monitor the transport of ballots. I got a lot more to say about the closing procedures. I'll just say this, this part about reconciled, they actually should be running a reconciliation checklist at the polling. I don't know about every county, but I know in Wake County, they have a checklist in their training guide. I would imagine the other counties do too, but this is something we need to fix, because the training is not standardized. Um, there's under Democrats, the training is not standardized. As much as as many problems we have with Kim Strack, I have to say that one thing she did right was they did do some standardized statewide training, and they put it online for anybody to look at. How about that? Democrats, they hide it all, and we don't see where the training is, and very disappointing. But anyway, note to observers: get permission to step outside long enough to. Oh, this is that closing procedure. You want to be able to step outside and photo document what's going on. Photograph the line, get a timestamp on all of this. If anybody's still standing in that line, definitely get it. If nobody's standing in that line, definitely get that. If there are no lines, it's really good to document it, because it can prevent activists from running to some court, a friendly judge, and saying, hey, we need to hold the precincts open. There are long lines out there. Where's your proof? They don't have to have proof. In fact, sometimes they get away with it even if the Republicans are there with the proof, saying, no, there are no lines there. Judge says, too bad, I'm doing it anyway. That's just, it's the air we breathe. Corrupt judges that collude with Democrats. It is what it is. But you want to get that documentation just in case it matters. And it might. Okay, voting and reconciliation procedures. There's a lot of language in here. Required voter actions, already been over that. That's the voting procedure. The reconciliation procedures. Reconciliation problems during early voting or election day are covered in numbered memo 2018-13. These are signs of reconciliation matters. As I'm giving you this training, you may not know what a spindle is, but when you get there, you'll see it. It's a spike where these little tickets, that call it in North Carolina, we call it the ATV, or authorization to vote. Each voter signs one of those, and they put them on a spindle, and they bundle them up. Generally, I don't know about every county, but the procedure I've seen is they bundle them up, every 100 of them, and take them off the spindle. Now, each of those ATVs are numbered sequentially, and generally the number should match the number in the machine that lists the number of ballots that are fed into the tabulation machine right by the exit door. Because the voter, what they do is they go in, they go in, they say their name, they get their name and address, they get their ATV, they look it over, they sign it. If everything's accurate, they sign it, or this isn't right, and then they go to the help desk and fix it. But generally, they get that straight. Then they go to the ballot table and they hand in that ATV to the ballot table, and the ballot person scans the ATV, scans the ballot, they barcode on both, and then they hand the voter the ballot. The voter goes and votes the ballot, and then goes over to the tabulation machine. They stuff it in the tabulation machine and walk out, and that's the end of the deal. So where this is a problem is when there's a big mismatch between the tally on the tabulation machine and on the pile of ATVs. That pile is called the spindle. So, I mean, this is a freaker outer for the chief polling official. This is equivalent to a banker, to the teller at the bank not having their drawer balance at the end of the day, and they're missing $100. It's like, holy crap. So this is a big deal. It's a very big deal. So you want to watch that. And if that happens, they're going to probably try and kick you out if that happens. But you have a right to be there. And if they kick you out, okay. Call the lawyer line quick and let them know what happened, because you need to get back in there, or they might need to roll a lawyer over to your vicinity and see what's going on, because I'll show you why in a minute. I think I've got it here. Maybe not. But there was a federal prosecution a couple of years ago in Durham, North Carolina, because the guy had screwed up the provisional ballot so bad he was cheating, and he was just throwing in more provisional, making them up and putting them in there. Other employees were appalled, and they wound up ratting him out, and that went to federal court. The guy got prosecuted, and the director of elections there, Michael Perry, he retired under medical conditions, probably the stress from all that crap. Okay, well, Michael's a nice guy, but Durham, poorly managed precinct under his leadership. Okay, and then let's see. Look at the so there's places you can look for problems when these ballots don't work, and you might suggest it. Maybe the emergency bin, maybe the spoiled ballots. The emergency bin is underneath the tab feeder, the thing that actually scans. Sometimes that thing breaks, and they'll open up the emergency bin and stick them under there. That's where they ought to be. At other times, um, the idiots have set up a cardboard box. If that thing's broken, just stick them in that cardboard box, and we'll get to them later when that machine's fixed. Ding dong, you're wrong. We've heard of that happening more than once in the 2016 election. It was bad news, bad juju, as they say. Shouldn't be happening, and yet it did. So that can cause ballots to be lost, destroyed, tampered with. Bad business. There is one place they should go, which is it's underneath that tabulation machine that your county paid good money for. That's where those ballots belong. It's called the emergency bin. So you might suggest, if they're freaking out, you might say, Chief, did y'all look in the emergency bin? Oh yeah, it was broken. Because if that thing's broken for half hour, and someone comes out and fixes it, they might in the interim stick ballots there. So they could be there, and you could be the hero or heroine of the day by reminding the chief, hey, according to my notes at 10 o'clock this morning, y'all had a problem, and you open the emergency bin. Oh yeah. Okay. Provisional voting watch list. Now, provisional ballots, these are, I'm not going to read all this to you except down at the bottom in bold. It says, pay attention. Some voters, this is a biggie. A voter is told to vote provisionally. They're given the envelope. They got all that stuff to do. And then instead, they just either on purpose or accidentally, they walk over and just stick their ballot in instead of sticking it in the envelope where it belongs, they go over and stick it in the tabulation machine while everybody else is going, what the? Did you see that? It's too late. Once they do it, it's too late. So a good idea we heard from a very helpful employee up in Gates County. An employee suggested something to the other employees working there. We were at the training. And she said, hey, if you're issuing a provisional ballot, fold it in half before you give it to the voter. And then you instruct the person who's babysitting the tabulation machine, the employee who's babysitting that machine, to watch for folded ballots. And if you get a folded ballot, you stop them and go, why is your ballot folded? Oh, no, they gave it to me that way. Okay, you need to go back over to the help desk because that's a provisional ballot. We try to get a law in that said provisional ballots would be marked such a way that would be readily identifiable. And well, David Lewis was in the legislature and he was in charge of election law, so we didn't get that, but we like to. And the way proactive employees can do it is to fold the ballot. Just fold it. It'll still go through the machine, and it's just it'll visually signal it. So we recommend that. Okay, let's see, facts. Observer questions after documentation. Okay, this is the difference between facts and feelings. Just while I'm rambling on, just read that. A man's face turned red. That's a fact. He raised his voice. That's a fact. Fists were clenched. Blah, 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 blah. Versus feelings. We don't need your feelings. When you document feelings, you are wasting your time. Now, over on the left, follow the incident report format. I'll show you that in a moment. Now, the key thing you need to do at the moment is document the important things. Later on, you can fill in the not so important. But remember, do not draw conclusions. If you're in court and you start using like those red words down there, the other guy will object. Say, attention, objection, witness is reaching a conclusion. Yeah, you can't do that. Okay, I'm not a lawyer, but I've heard that about courtrooms. I've seen it on Perry Mason. Okay, actions. Another action, you spoke to the judge. What time did you speak to the judge? When was it resolved? And another, that very bottom on the left-hand side, note the number of voters affected. We'll go over that later in the documentation. Okay, after documenting the issue, politely ask questions. After documenting it, get it all down, get all your facts, so you've got it. Plus, you've given your brain time to calm down. Your brain's pretty excited. Dang, I saw I saw something wrong there. I need to complain. I need to intervene. So writing it down will calm you down, because if you intervene first, you might be so mentally agitated that you can't even read your own handwriting. Been there, done that. Trust me, it's human. At least I think it is. I think I'm human. Anyway, okay. It was my understanding that she was not supposed to suggest the address of the voter. That's when you're talking about the employee who suggested an address. Or a second point is my understanding that people inside this room shouldn't be electioneering. I saw that person turning to the person behind her and arguing with that person about who they're voting for. That's electioneering. Third, could you please check your training manual? Could you please check with your party supervision? That party, that's not right. You're not talking. You're talking to the chief judge. So that's really not going to work unless you're outside. So scratch that one. But rules to you: do not interrupt. Let the chief judge have their say and nod. Think of it like talking to the nice policeman who pulled you over. There's no point in arguing with a cop. We know this. So don't argue with the chief judge, because they have that kind of authority. It's true. They're sworn officers on that day. It's true. They have a swearing in ceremony and everything. Okay. And if you do want to say something in reply, the chief judge, blah, 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 wait till they finish, then say, well, it's my understanding that blah, 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 blah. So you're doing it in a humble way, and that, humble, polite, maintain good relationships if at all possible. Now, if the supervisor or chief judge is too busy and just doesn't want to deal with you, at a certain point, just go out and make the call. Document first, then make the call. And remember, though, only speak to the chief judge or site supervisor. All right, some sample issues. You can read these yourself. I'm not going to go through them. But I will say this: action, document and act. Step outside, call the hotline, log when it happened. Okay, that's kind of this is a what do they call an animation gone wild. So it's the same action always. Just read it yourself. Read them and weep. Okay, this is the sample incident reports. I'm not going to go over them. Just as you read through them, you can download them, by the way, at our website. Down at the bottom, www.voterintegrityproject, singular, all one word, voterintegrityproject.com/observers, or just get on the main site and look for the tab observers. Click on that. And we have a lot of resources there. Got other training videos, probably like the one you're looking at right now. And you got these forms, and just these forms are good. They're law enforcement grade. We've our friends in California who invented these work with law enforcement. I've cleared them with attorneys who fight cases in federal court, and they said, looks good to me. So they're just attorneys, but some of them are pretty smart. So anyway, you got to get that signature down the bottom, but you don't have to sign it right there on the moment. Just get the key incident details, get the basic facts, get the any witnesses. If there are any employees there, get them. You can get the information later on all that stuff. Or maybe if it's another observer with you, you can get that easily. But you have to have that in the report long term. Now, if it's another, I'm sorry, I was looking at the incident report. The thing about witnesses is, okay, on the observer incident report, if the witness is somebody in here, it's confusing. Let me back up. Specific issue. This is the thing you want to write pretty quickly, and just use those numbers any way you want to. But this is key. Number of voters affected, time polling official was notified, time problem resolved. So it might be that you have an employee who's volunteering the address to voters. And it does it to 3 employees before you can get the chief judge activated. Number of voters. Or the electioneering. Got somebody loud talking about how bad Orange Man is, and 6 people are in line hearing it before you can get the chief judge to intervene and stop it. That's 6 voters who are affected. That's kind of a cool number to have in there. Not 6, but just how many voters are affected. Okay. Okay. It's the rest of it kind of self-explanatory. At the very bottom, I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of North Carolina that the foregoing and any attachments is true and correct. Executed on. That stuff, whenever you sign it, you want to sign it later that day. Now, Okay, what happens if you see a voter reading his or her name on a piece of paper? And in some cases, we've heard of them actually having a great deal of difficulty being able to pronounce their name. Wonder how that would happen. Somebody handed a foreigner, probably not even a US citizen, a piece of paper with a name and address on it and said, okay, go vote with this. Just read this, and you'll be good. And they go, okay. And they go in there and they start reading it and they can't do it. Yes, I've had more than one report on that exact scenario. In both cases, the voter got away with it. Why? Well, number one, in both cases, it was an employee who saw it, and the employee felt powerless to do anything. Check our video, Powerless Poll Workers, at that same website, voterintegrityproject.com/observers. Check out the video on that, and you'll see it. You'll see example of that and just the problems we have with that because their hands are tied. They can't really do much. You, as an observer, can. You saw it and you saw the person behind that person who did it. You can get the name of the voter who couldn't read his name. You can get the name they gave. My name was Larry Rollins. They couldn't pronounce that. They, I'll get in trouble if I mimic some foreigner mispronouncing that name, but it's a lot of fun to call a Chinese restaurant and do a carry out order for Larry Rollins because it's cute watching them try and say it. But that's the kind of pranks our nerdy friends used to do in Hawaii. Okay. Oh man, so much trouble now. I'm just screwed. I'll probably wind up in court over that. Okay. It's a joke, people. It's a joke. Okay. What's the point? Okay. You got a witness in line. You got someone standing behind Larry Rollins who saw Larry Rollins vote, and it wasn't Larry Rollins. Larry could not read his name, had to read his address, but the voter behind it saw it. Okay. You don't say a word to that voter. You just keep an eye on him, maybe even make eye contact. Hold your fire, or don't say anything. Don't do anything because they might start trying to talk to you. What you do is when that witness, you document Larry Rollins, you document what you saw Larry do exactly. Fill out your incident report. That's the form on the left. You fill that out. What I saw, this guy going in clearly did not know it. The election official, it's so easy to say the election official seemed upset, seemed annoyed, not good enough. The election official asked the person several times to repeat the name and appeared confused. Even that's going to a conclusion. Clearly concluded, no, clearly, okay, the election official asked the voter several times to repeat their name as if they couldn't understand it. And finally, the election official took the piece of paper from the voter and entered the data into the machine and printed the authorization to vote. Okay, that's a foul, and that's almost verbatim what one witness saw happen. And in the other case, never mind. The point was, you're stating what you saw. You have a witness standing behind that person. Then you just follow that witness out when they leave. You don't disrupt. You just quietly go out with them, follow them out. And as soon as they get past that 50-foot boundary line saying, excuse me, did you see that in there? They go, yeah, I saw that. What did you think? I was kind of annoyed. Okay, we want to fix this. Would you mind helping me by helping me with a witness statement saying you saw it? Because it would be a lot more powerful to fix it if I could get what you saw also. And just see what they say. If they were that annoyed, maybe they'll help you fix it because we need to get this fixed in state law. This is why we need voter ID when you see chicanery like that. So, you could have that conversation. Don't you wish they had an ID? They didn't even have an ID. They had a piece of paper with their name on it. All right. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Okay, incident reports versus witness statements. Either one, you kind of fill in the key stuff later. I mean, the key stuff on the moment, and the other stuff that can wait, you let it wait. One day we'll probably have a highlighted section of what's important on the moment and what isn't. But anyway, don't forget to sign them and all that stuff. You want to try and get witnesses if you can, but be sure you're outside the 50-foot boundary when you do it. Otherwise, You get kicked out of there for talking inside the 50-foot boundary. All right. Now we have mission priorities as we begin the wrap up here. Mission priorities. Okay, forgive my military lingo, but that's my background. And I was at one point in my career, we would do mission planning. So it's what we do. The priorities are your most important job is careful documentation. I mean, literally, that's more important than jumping in there and trying right the wrongs. You want to document it first. So that's your most important job. Details matter more than you realize. Try to write down as many details as you can before addressing the behavior. This will help you avoid getting angry. And do your best to write down key facts. I said that redundantly and twice again. Okay, when inside, only speak with the chief judge or site supervisor. Don't speak to anybody else or you are wrong. When outside the electioneering boundary, you can speak to anybody you want to. You can even take their picture when you're outside there. But if you run around taking everybody's picture, some judge is going to haul you in and get you in trouble for it. So don't just wantonly take pictures of everybody because that's viewed as intimidation. But you see one person who went in there, and Larry Rollins, you know the guy, he went in there, didn't know his name, stumbled through it, and you get outside, yeah, take his picture. Go ahead. That's with or without a witness. Take his picture. Okay. And if there's any controversies that arise, call your leadership. Make sure your leadership hears it from you, because the chief judge, if they're being jerks, and believe me, I've run into some jerks who are chief judge, they will lie about you. They'll go in there and lie. I'll give one war story. I asked the chief judge your name and your party affiliation. She goes, I don't know if I can answer that. She goes, I need to kick you out. But she didn't say it that way. She says, I need you to leave while I talk to my supervision to see if I have to answer that question. So 30 seconds later, my phone rings, and it's the Republican Party chairman, because they had sponsored me in for that election. And he says, Jay, what's this I hear about you quizzing voters? So asking the chief judge a question was translated into me quizzing voters. So somebody lied along that little game of, what do you call it, telephone, that messaging. Somebody lied and said I was quizzing voters, which I never would do that. That's against the law, and I wouldn't do it because I want to stay in there and have good terms. But somebody lied about me and said I did. So that's a problem. This is why, in general, you don't want to be in there by yourself, or if you are in there by yourself, you want to be sure there's also a Republican assistant judge who's paying attention to what's going on. When you talk to the chief judge, it'd be really nice if that Republican judge would be there too. So that is information you can get from your party leadership if your party leadership has a spine. If your party leadership has a spine, they can get that information ahead of time to know what Republicans are on staff at each polling location. And they can give that information to their observers. That'd be kind of nice to have. Just saying. Okay, as a greeter, you have greeter mission priorities. I can't tell you the number of times I've heard of greeters panicking and getting mad about this stuff and never knowing what to do. And I'd say, did you happen to talk to the driver? No. Why would I do that? You might go over and just have a casual conversation. Say, wow, that's pretty cool. Where y'all from? Maybe they'll go, butt out. But maybe it'd say, oh yeah, we're over the nursing home, over at the church. Yeah, they don't have to know you're a Republican out there. Hey, cool. Where are y'all from? You don't have to act like a cop. Just see if where are you going now? Where are you going next? Oh, I think we're going over to the Lynn Road voting location next. That'd be some good information to have now, wouldn't it? But details. Okay, let me go through this. Are there names on the side of the bus? Yeah, you get the license tag number of that bus too. Note any unique voter features egressing the vehicle. That's a military term for getting out of the vehicle. One guy he saw some lady with a walker. Saw someone with another guy saw someone with an unusual birthmark on her face. Unusual clothing. Okay, something I don't have in here that I want to mention is was anybody handing out pieces of paper to them? Because we have one of our videos on our website talks about a piece of paper, and somebody was handing out pieces of paper to people as they egress the bus. He got excited, and he darn near about got thrown out of the precinct. He was arguing with the chief judge, and chief judge said, you can either shut up or you can leave. Those are your choices. If you don't leave or shut up, I'm going to call the cops. The guy was mad, and he left. He stomped out. So don't be that guy. Keep it cool. Document. document, document. Okay, special interest item is we call it cohort voting. These might be in vans, they might be in buses, but they might not. They might be in 3 or 4 cars. Choo, choo, choo. Car door slams, they all get out and they get together and they walk in together and they're talking to each other, colluding, maybe even they're whispering. Nothing says, hey, I'm committing a crime better than people whispering. Yeah, okay. If you see that kind of thing, from the outside, that's what you might see as a greeter. From the inside, what you might see is a sudden burst of similar behavior. We had an insider, we had an election employee who was friends of ours, and she told me that one thing she saw that really amazed her, middle of the afternoon during a 2014 um, general election. Um, Sudden burst of activity at the help desk where there were suddenly about half dozen people all there for the same reason. They were all voting out of precinct. How does that just happen? They came in together. They were a cohort. They came in to vote out of precinct. Why? Why is that a big deal? Because, see, on election day, if you walk into your poll and lie about who you are, there's a chance you can get caught. There's at least a chance because somebody in that precinct may actually know the guy you're imitating. But if you're voting out of precinct, they're not going to know who you are. They just fill out the paperwork and send you on. So when 6 or 8 people all walk in at the same time voting out of precinct, it probably means there's some Democrats up to no good. Okay, that was a joke. But what it probably means is that those people are up to no good. That part wasn't a joke. The part about them being Democrats, who knows? They could have been unaffiliated. Okay, see, it really doesn't matter. A fraudulent vote is a fraudulent vote. And I swear, if I ever catch you pulling back because the fraud was a Republican voter, I'm gonna hurt you. If I catch you doing that, I'm gonna hurt you because that's not what we're about. You know, we joke about Democrat, Republican, but it's a fact that fraud screws everybody. Fraud. I mean, do you want to be on the winning side that relied on fraud to win? Maybe you do, but if you do, you're going to be reliant on fraud. And one day you're going to get in jail for something. You're going to get in trouble for something because you get away with that. You're going to get away with more and more crime. And you're going to think, oh, I'm entitled to that. Think Hunter Biden. Think Hillary Clinton. You're gonna think that, oh, those rules don't apply to me. Think David Lewis. You it's a bad habit to rely on fraud. So if you're working for someone who wants you to commit fraud, get up with me, will you? And I got some friends who could hook you up with undercover cameras and just say, I want to catch those bastards. If they're committing fraud, I don't care what party they are. So all joking aside about Democrat and Republican, that's from the heart. We don't like fraud. We hate cheaters. Okay? All right. Um, okay, enough of that lecturing. What do you do with cohort voting? If you're an observer, step outside and find the greeter. Do those people come in together? Talk to the greeter. Get the greeter to get pictures of their vehicles if you know where they came from, or to follow them out and get license plates. And ask the greeter to call their party supervision if they have time. Call right as soon as those people leave. You don't know where they're going. Common sense says they're probably going to the next nearest voting location. And then get back inside. You know, if you're an observer, just talk to the greeter real quick and get inside. Confirm that they're actually voting. That's important. Confirm that they're voting. Okay, greeter, what do? You coordinate with your party leadership and flat out, this is what I would do if I were a greeter. I'd say, hey, boss, I'm leaving. You need to send somebody else over here. I'm going to follow this cohort. There's a bunch of them. They got a van. I want to see where they're going. They're going back to the nursing home, which is cool. That's legal. That's good stuff. You just wasted your time. Are they going to another voting location? That's bad. If they did that, that's bad. They can't do it. Okay. I say if approved, follow the vehicle at a safe distance. I don't know what your county or what your party official would do, and I'm not asking you to violate their rules. But if I were going rogue, that's what I would do. Okay. Note, not all buses are bad. I just went over this. Good bus. You know, souls of the polls. There's people coming from churches on Sunday and they go in to vote. And they go back to the church and reload. Other people get on, get off the bus. That's okay. That's just churches mobilizing the vote. It's legal. Your church can do it too. Okay, very bad. These things. Let the party leadership know. Now, let's see. I'm going to read these to you because there's something I wanted to say. Alert party leadership to notify the at-large observer if they got any. The at-large observer should confirm the voting behavior at subsequent precincts. If at-large observer not available, okay, because the at-large observer can just walk in and say, "Oh, they're voting." Now, if it's not the at-large observer, see, hopefully you are following the vehicles as you go over there, not close enough to be seen, but you're doing it. Now, of course, now if the bad guys are watching this video, they're saying, check to make sure you're not being followed. Okay, what else? Whatever. These haulers have a job and they're getting paid to get these people to vote at location after location after location. So they're thinking about that. They're not really thinking about you. They're thinking about getting paid. And it's all criminal, it's all legal, but that's what they do. Okay, so if you're not an at-large observer, that means you can't just walk into the polling and go, I want to see what's going on. But you can walk in there and stand in line like you're going to vote. Just saying. You can have a conversation with them as if you're a voter. And you can say, oh, you know what? You can change your mind. I was going to vote. I decided not to. I want to go out and make a phone call because there's one candidate I'm not sure about. I just or walk in and ask a stupid question. Do I need a voter ID? Can you check to see if this is my precinct? You can ask a lot of questions that'll gum up the works that'll let you in a lawful way, semi-lawful. Just play stupid. Just play stupid. Walk in there and say, hey, you're looking around. Okay, enough said. Okay, I think we're okay. Next, downtime and hotline tips. Okay, let's wind the clock back. You're inside. You're in the polls. Sometimes it's quiet and boring in the polls. I don't care what day you're there. Sometimes there's just nobody there. During early voting, it's hit or miss, but sometimes it's down. Try and get to know the chief judge. Try and build a relationship. Pays off. And you're not manipulating them. Be genuinely interested in their lives, though, because they have a hard job. And they're not all bad people. Some of them are, but most of them are not. Most of them are just honest people doing thankless work. So don't walk in there like I'm a voter integrity project trained killer, and you're a crook, and I know you are. I'm going to catch you. Don't be that person. These people, they're just trying to get the election over with in an orderly and honest way and get paid. Reconcile the books and get out of there. And if you're getting in their way and bugging them and causing problems, they're not going to like you. But, develop friendship, develop relationship. Who knows? Maybe next time you will be working there as an election employee. That's what I would like. People like you, people watching this video to go, you know what? I care about election integrity. I want to work inside next time. I need that. Okay. That's what that whole first bullet about during downtime. And do not chat with any other employees. I'm not kidding you. I thought the intent of that was while voters are around. No, it's selectively enforced, but they can. I knew a woman who everyone was gone. All the voters were gone. And this woman, Sandy is her name. And Sandy was sitting there chatting with one of the employees who looked at Sandy and said, what are you still doing here? Sandy said, I want to see the closing procedures. And the employee said, look, Martha's not going to let you do that. I can tell right now. Martha was the chief judge. Sandy says, I don't know what you mean. So they're just standing there waiting and they're just chit-chatting. And they're talking about her. Sandy told me they were talking about shoes. When Martha came over, red-faced, and said, I told you, no talking to anybody in this precinct except me. You're out of here. Well, there you go. Sandy got kicked out. All the voters were gone. So don't assume you could talk unless Martha pre-cleared it and said, yeah, when no voters are around, you can talk to our people. But she may just say, no, I don't want you to because it's just not a good practice. And that's okay. She's not being a jerk. It's just probably isn't a good practice. Okay, enough of that. Now, when calling the hotline, do not leave a voicemail message. They're busy. They're answering the phone all day. If the phone rings and rings and rings, just hang up. And if you have a text number to send them, text them. If you don't have one, get one when you call them because they have cell phones. Come on. This is the year 2020, right? Okay. Call back. Just if they're busy, it's like when you call Domino's to order pizza, do you really want to have them go, please hold? They could have you on hold for 5 minutes. Instead, just hang up and call back later. Okay. Now, the last point, be quick but not hasty. Ask a quick question, get off the phone. Briefly explain the incident. Be prepared to give the name, the phone, your precinct number, succinct. Not every problem you document needs to involve the lawyer line, as I call it, the hotline. It's really only when things are going sideways pretty badly and the chief judge is not cooperating. That's when you need help. Okay, observer general orders. Here they are. I am going to read these. Number one, document across the top, document election anomalies while nurturing a cooperative relationship with the chief judge or site supervisor. That is your general operating instruction, bar none. That's the most important thing. You are not to play the role of Superman or Wonder Woman and come in and rescue any situation. Not my job, man. You do that, you're going to get in trouble. Don't bother. Okay, but know your rights. You have a right to see, a right to hear, and a right to ask questions. Scrupulously avoid confidential information. I mean, if you accidentally glance over and there's the computer, get away. Just, whoa, I didn't mean to be there. I don't want to see that. Do not even have the appearance that you're looking at the laptop. Don't just be staring into space and it happens to be the computer with the voter's driver's license ID number on it, date of birth. Don't be that guy. Because they'll say, I saw him staring at it. Yeah, you weren't even thinking about it, but they saw you do it. So if you ever glance over, look away, avert your eyes. Kind of in the Bible too, to avert your eyes over sin. It is sin to look at that laptop. Don't do it. Okay, and never interfere with the voting process. Never jump in there and start raising Cain. I've grown on this. I used to say do it, but in this current environment, I say I have agreed with the smartest lawyers in the state that sometimes the juice is not worth the squeeze. In the year of our Lord 2020, if you challenge a voter, they're gonna crucify you. It's just not worth the squeeze. I'm sorry. Just get out there, get on your lawyer line. Use your best judgment. Call the hotline judiciously, but call them. Complete the incident reports in a timely manner. Don't wait until the election's over. I'm going on vacation, then I'm going to fill them out. No, fill it out that night. Get it done. Get it done quickly. We need a copy. This says VIP needs a copy in order to assimilate the big picture, assimilate the data, and give lawmakers a big picture. Yeah, you just saw my little dyslexia, which is probably why it took me 8 years to get a bachelor's degree instead of 4, like most people. Anyway, so we need that documentation. We need it. And I know people love to play I got a secret, especially political people in the parties. Well, I don't know if I want them to have that information. Look, we're trying to get good laws, and if we can get good documentation, we can show it to lawmakers and get good law. But if your party officials play cutesy little games with it, and get all strategic with it, we're screwed and we're stuck with bad laws. And that also means we're probably stuck with corrupt politicians in your own party, because that's what we ran into with David Lewis. Ding dong, he's gone. So, but he blocked a lot of good election integrity laws that were common sense, and he lied to me about it. So sorry, I'm trying to be charitable as a Christian here, but nope, he's been indicted and I'm glad. Okay, enough of that. Don't trust your party to take care of this information. Get copies of it and get us a copy of it. Please, 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 I beg you. Okay. And why? For research purposes. It's not like we're going to drag your tail in court over what you wrote down on that piece of paper. Although there probably will be some left-wing organization that'll demand to see all those pieces of paper, which is fine. They can knock themselves out. Okay. On the right, always remember, this is serious, guys. Voting is the great equalizer in American society. Everybody has a right, black, white, brown, male, female, any nationality. If they're lawful voters, they have a right to vote, rich or poor. So remember that. It's why we're Americans. So don't be a jerk. Don't stop people from voting just because they're different than you. Okay, the vast majority of voters are honest. Election employees have a thankless task. People are happy to be voting. I like that situation, even if they're Democrats. I celebrate the joy of their voting. They're sitting there going in the back of their head, they're going, yeah, I'm going to screw you. And I'm messing them up because I'm going, hey, yeah, it's a big day. You're voting. Congratulations. I love this day. And I do. And you should too, because it's a day we get to be Americans. It's the only civil act that unifies us as Americans. So treat it with a little dignity. treat it with a little respect. Don't be a jerk. Don't go out and get yourself arrested for being a jerk. And if you do get arrested, don't throw my name under the bus. This training is purely voluntary. You don't work for me. Okay. We want observers to preserve the process. We don't want them to disrupt the process. And finally, that last item on the right, you are responsible for your own actions. So only act in a manner that is above suspicion, or as they say in the Bible, above reproach. That concludes it. Okay, that was fast. And if I talk too fast, too bad. Just go watch it again. Stop share. And I'll say, see, this is what we get on election day. This is what we get at the polls. We see a lot of weird stuff going on. So check out our website. Look at other updates we'll have at voterintegrityproject.com/observers. And we'll try and keep the barroom brawl to a minimum, try and keep order and document chaos. And give us a call. Our phone number's at the bottom of the webpage. Give us a call if you see some stuff that's really crazy. But generally, you need to deal with these things in your own party, preferably, I don't know what Democrats care about other than intimidation. That's a big deal to them. And we agree. I actually agree with the Democrats that voter intimidation is a bad thing. And we'll document that. But they think, Republicans are doing the only ones who intimidate voters. Okay, knock yourself out. If that's what you think, okay. Yeah, okay, good. We just want to document all intimidation and don't be that guy who's intimidating people. So voterintegrityproject.com, we can always use your contributions. We have a contribution tab on our website. That organization is a 501c4, meaning we are a tax exempt nonprofit organization, but your donations are not tax deductible. However, as a C4, it means your business can give us shameful amounts of money, or you can give us shameful amounts of money. There's no contribution limit. We prefer not to get cash. We used to be able to collect cash, but we can't anymore because now we're a C4. So we have to document where the money comes from. In rare circumstances, the courts can make us turn over that stuff, but it is true. But in general, C4 contributions are, so I shouldn't have told you that rare circumstance thing. There was a lawsuit in California where it was a marriage amendment, a gay marriage amendment, and they sued until they found the right judge, and the judge ordered them to turn over the information. But except when there's weird situations like that, it does not happen. So don't worry about it. We'll be happy to take your money, and a lot of it we just used it. We flipped it over and used it for signs. But occasionally we pay lawyers, and when we do, we have a sister organization called the Election Law Education Center. And after this election, you'll see our website. It'll be called voterintegrityjustice.org. And that's just a teaser, but that'll be, if our arms and legs are attached after November 4th, we're going to have a website. And that's our litigation arm. And we do business as the Election Law Education Center. But it'll be Voter Integrity Justice. And that's it. I'm Jay Delancey. And if you endured all this and my humor and my serious moments too, I want to thank you. And remember, we get the democracy, we get the government we deserve. So if you sit there and think all you got to do is sit on Facebook and hit the little like button and you are doing your part for democracy, then okay, you're a virtual participant in democracy and you will get a virtual seat at the table. But if you really want to be involved in making a difference in the public policy, you got to get out and do the heavy lifting. Got to work the polls, be a greeter, be an observer, document. And at that, I will leave you.